Hey guys, it's Amber. This is probably not going to be one video, it's probably going to be multiple videos, and it's going to turn into a series, right? And I'm not even sure what all I'm going to say. This isn't organized, this is just me off the cuff. I'm being really, really vulnerable and really, really honest. And hopefully I don't break down while I'm on here. I want to talk about what it takes to really, really unravel your shit and work through your limiting beliefs. Because people talk all the time about how you have to do this. But what they don't tell you is what the process is like, how long it takes. Obviously, how long it takes is dependent on how much shit you've got going on. And the other thing they don't tell you is that once you get through one thing, 5 million more things pop up. And you never realize just how much shit you've got to go through and unravel to truly get to the heart of it. I went through years of therapy. Years. Probably 4 or 5 years of therapy. At one point in time, I was going twice a week. Yeah. That only lasted for a couple of months while I worked through basically the equivalent. I was having a nervous breakdown, for lack of a better way to put it. Actually, there is no other way to put it. I was having a nervous breakdown. And in order to get through my nervous breakdown, I had to go to therapy twice a week or be hospitalized. That was my options. I took therapy twice a week. And I got through so much of my stuff. So much of my stuff. But recently, as I start to go into business for myself and start to do all of the things, work toward my own dreams, what happens is you find your own limiting beliefs. You find your own things that are always holding you back, and they've always been there. They've been there, they were there in grade school, they were there in high school, they were there in college. The reasons that I've never finished a degree, the reasons I have a hard time finishing a book, let alone a series. Don't get me going. I finished Harry Potter. I'd never watched the last 2 movies. Right? This seems so stupid and silly. It's not stupid. It's not. Okay. So, like I said, you're going to see the process and how ridiculous some of this feels and what I go through. Because I feel like there's value in this somehow. You getting to see me like this is valuable in some way, shape, or form, or fashion. Maybe to make you feel like it's not ridiculous, because it really isn't. This is how the process works. This is how it goes. Anyway, I'd always wanted to read the last 2 books before I watched the movies. I don't think I had the last 2 books. I don't have the last one. Somewhere in the process, I don't have all of the books, right? And it's really, really hard for me to sit down and read a book nowadays. My brain doesn't let me do that. Meditating is very difficult for me, probably because I have this entire mountain of shit back here that's always trying to come forward when I'm trying to do that. Actually, that's exactly what it is. But anyway, so what happens is you start working towards your goals, and then you have this internal conversation that's happening. Always happening. Always. Right? It's happening when you're out. It's happening when you're driving. It's happening while I'm sitting here. And my brain is saying, shut up, shut up, shut up. Don't tell anybody all of this. Blah, 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 blah. You know. Don't tell people these stories. This is ridiculous. Stop. Don't be vulnerable. This is weak, etc., etc., etc. And to really get into that and really, really dive into, this all started, right? A few nights ago, not a few nights ago, I've been doing a detox on my life for the last month and a half now, 2 months, and deleting things on Facebook, getting rid of friends that are no longer really friends. They were business acquaintances in a market that I don't even want to be in anymore. And on top of that, when I message them, no response whatsoever. And I'm like, okay, obviously we're not friends. So let's just get that out of my life. And that just kind of started a process, because what happens is we're holding on to things that are no longer serving us, and we need to let those things go, right? And so you start letting things go, and it feels scary, but really, really good at the same time. And what that does is it allows for you to be able to look at other parts of your life and look at other things that are going on in other ways that you're being blocked. And you start to work through those things, and you start to, and it's not even something that you can't just sit down and say, I'm going to work on this. You can. And it started for me the other night. The hardcore stuff that's been happening the last couple days just started with me sitting down and going, why am I doing this? Why am I working? Who am I trying to serve? Why? What is the purpose? What is the real purpose for this? And it started out with, I want to, hell, I'll pull it up. Give me a second. Get back in there. It started with the usual shit, like to help women feel and get shit done, to help women get out of their head and into their heart and get shit done, to make things happen, and to fulfill my deep need to help people and have a life that has meaning, to be able to provide for my family, to be able to send Mike to school and allow us to still maintain a certain lifestyle, to buy a home, to support myself, to finally feel like I'm worthy of life. And that one hit me like a freight train. I stopped. I had to literally stop. And I went, whoa. Alright, so where did that come from? You know what I mean? Because all of those things were happening, and I'm like, okay, but why? And then, but why? But why? But why? But why? And every line was a why. And what I noticed and what I started to understand is that there's more. This is it. Like, everything in my life is surrounded by core desired feelings, and I have lists upon lists of core desired feelings, but what it really boils down to is there's probably 5 that if you work through all of your shit and really start to ask yourself why, you will come up with 4 or 5 core feelings that you are trying to achieve and trying to maintain. And really the only thing I did was free flow. This was free flow writing. I asked a question and then I literally did a brain dump of everything that came up while I was answering that question. I didn't filter. I didn't stop myself. I just kept on going. And so then the word worthy like really, really hit me hard. And there was more after that. But the word worthy was like, really? Like, am I still that 14-year-old girl who doesn't feel worthy of life because of this or that or the other? What is really going on here? And then the next night it turned into a letter to myself, which resulted in me basically throwing up on the page and getting a little drunk and just rambling. So my point in the start of this series is that this isn't a short process. This isn't I'm just going to do this one thing this one night and knock it out of the park and feel better tomorrow. At least not in my case. If you have had a really, really good life and there's not been a whole lot happen to you and a whole lot, you've just not had a lot of conflict and you've had a different experience growing up, you will probably be okay and be able to knock that out in maybe a week or two. But it's taken me years to get to this point. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I absolutely feel like you should, because otherwise you will waste your life. And it will suck. I have wasted so much time. So much time. Trying to decide how much I want to talk about. I have a very pivotal memory of being about 8 years old, 8 or 9, and I was about to go in for a major surgery on my lip. And by major, I mean I was going to be under for 4 or more hours. And anytime you put anybody under for that length of time, there's a chance that you won't wake up from that something will happen on the table, the anesthetics will kill you, essentially. Alright, I have a very pivotal memory of people whispering around me. And them saying there's a possibility that she won't wake up from this. And then we had a wonderful pastor back then, and he got on a plane at 4 o'clock in the morning, and flew to where we were, because we weren't at home, and got off a teeny tiny little prop plane, and this was not a small man. Got off the plane, said our prayer with us, got back on the plane 20 minutes later. He was with us until I went into surgery, and then he left. He sat with Mom and Dad for a little bit, and then he left and went home. Got back on a plane because he had a wedding and a funeral that afternoon that he had to do. That's how amazing he was. But that really freaked me out. Like, that's when I knew this was serious. And I remember bits and pieces of the prayer. I'm 33, I think, 32, 33. Can't remember my own age at the moment. But anyway, and I was 8 or 9 at the time. And I remember that prayer. I remember, I very intensely remember what the room looked like, what the smell was, everything about this particular day and this particular moment in my life. And I remember during the prayer listening to him, but also begging for my life. that's not something an 8-year-old should have to worry about. There's so much more beyond just that moment. But you have to work through all of those emotions, the fear, the pain, the anger. And then there were things that took place right after that, after that time period, that caused so much shame and pain and struggle in our life as a family that was directly a result of my being born like this. It's just a lot. So when you start to wrap this up, because it's already 16 minutes long, to wrap this up, when you start the process, like, this is my greatest piece of advice for you, is when you start the process, let it flow. Understand that if you've got something deeply painful, deeply problematic in your life, you're not gonna go through it once and get over it. There's gonna be more. Because I guarantee you the first time you deal with something, you're just covering the surface. And then as you start to dive in more and dive in with other issues, like in particular, some of this was about money. Some of the things that I am dealing with currently are as a result of limiting beliefs surrounding money. And it's all coming back up again. So, and again, we're also worthiness and guilt and pain and anger and all of these things, they all come up during that. Shame. If you are not a fan of Brene Brown, I actually was watching a talk of hers that I've seen already 4 times, 4 or 5 times, when I decided to stop and make this video. You've got to work through your blocks, though, because it's the only way to be successful. You cannot push this shit under the rug any longer. If you want to be successful and you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to do your things, you have to work through all of this stuff. It's so hard. But once you do, and once you release that and let it go, and it's still there, those scars will never go away. But the healing process quickens every time. You get new scar tissue and it doesn't hurt as bad, right? And that's what you want. You want to get it down to, let's say, the thought comes in your head, I'm not worthy of this. And your brain immediately attacks that thought and says, look, we don't feel this way anymore. Boop, and it blocks it. It stops the thought in its tracks before it can really dive in deep into your psyche. And it says, no, this is not true. This is no longer the way that we're looking at things. This is no longer true. This is no longer valid. This is no longer the way that we choose, that I choose to look at my life. I am worthy. I am capable. I am. And that's where you want to get to. With every limiting belief you have, and by God, write them all down. Because once you get all the ones that you can think of written down and you start to work through each one of those, you'll get a whole nother list. And you just keep going. This process, I don't think that it ends. I don't think that it ends. which is terrifying to think of. And I fully understand now why some people feel like suicide is the only option. It's not. It's absolutely not. God. And Lord knows I've been there. That's a story for another time. Another video, another time. But I have been there. I was literally 5 seconds from doing it. And that's a surreal woo-woo type story that's not for today. But anywho, the point is, I understand that. I understand why people feel that way. But there is so much more. There is so much more. And you are totally, totally capable of making a change. Changing your story. And getting your life back. You can be happy. You just have to do the work. So there's my little wisdom drop, even though it's 22 minutes and a lot more vulnerable than I intended. Like I said, this is going to be a series, and I think at this point I don't even know what the hell to call it, but it's going to be a series. And if you're watching this, I hope in some way, shape, form, or fashion I didn't scare you. But more than that, I hope that it gives you hope. And peace in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And it gives you the drive to do something different, to take one of your limiting beliefs today and say, no more. No more. You deserve better. You are loved. And you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be prosperous. And you deserve to feel good about who you are. Have an awesome day. And if this interests you and you want to learn more about being vulnerable, about being yourself, I think I'm going to start a whole section just on that. And kind of tell you my story. Maybe not all of it, because some of it I literally, I can't do it all. But I'll give you a lot, as much as I can, without hurting those that I love. So, I love you all. Make it a wonderful day. Have a good one.